Very good afternoon to all of you. So here, I'm welcoming all of you for the first international conference on plastics and environmental sustainability. The panel discussion we are going to start now. And I'm warmly welcome all our panelists here, and I'm going to introduce them one by one. So first, I'm going to introduce Professor Jagat Manatunga from University of Moratuwa, and Dr. Adil Bakir from Cefas of UK, Professor Ajit Dialwis from National Innovation Agency as well as in the University of Moratuwa, and Dr. Rangika Bandara from University of Kalaniya, and Dr. Kushani Mahatantila from Industrial Technology Institute. And today I'm so grateful to you and so thankful to you. You all are here with our invitation, and I hope that this panel discussion will be very fruitful one for all of you, because there are so many panelists that they are going to talk about the country situation and the plastic situation, solid waste management, as well as that how microplastics affect us, and also what kind of precautions, so kind of steps we are taken as Sri Lanka or the Sri Lankans, right? So may I start then our questions? First of all, that I'd like to talk about or ask my first questions to Professor Jagat Manatunga. Professor Jagat Manatunga, actually that we know that about the solid waste management, we have done many things for so many years. But nowadays, this plastic is really becoming a serious issue. And also the country takes several let's say they have launched several strategies and many more things, but however still we don't feel much things are happening. But we know that we heard that there are so many regulations, frameworks they have launched. So would you please tell us about this problem of plastic waste effectively? Sri Lanka has introduced few regulations recently, and would you please explain about those things?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Lucky to be the first respondent here. Thank you for the question, Professor Bandhuri. Yes, I have brought the regulations that have been published in Sri Lanka. Yes, my thoughts go back to year 2000 when the Ministry of Environment, I don't know, that may be the name that the ministry had at that time, they developed a national strategy on solid waste management in year 2000. And it took a little time for them to formulate the national plan for solid waste management. It was published in year 2007. And during that time, different institutions who are responsible for waste management had their own strategies, plans, and programs developed. Especially, I would like to mention the National Solid Waste Management Support Center, initiated an initiation of JICA and later supported by COICA, connected with the Ministry of Local Government. They had very comprehensive, very well-developed programs for popularizing the 3R principles and waste management strategies and programs. And they did not particularly look at plastics as a separate stream of waste, but mainly these solid waste management strategies and policies. They looked at municipal solid waste as one waste streamline. And they had plastic as one category of waste included in the municipal solid waste. And also hazardous waste came up later. Plastics came up under hazardous waste category as well. And coming on to, I will come on to the latest National Solid Waste Waste Management Policy later. Now, the first plastic-related regulation was enacted in year 2006 by the Gazette Notification number 1466, number 5 of October 2006. It was an order from the Minister of Environment prohibiting, with effect from 1st January 2007, prohibiting the manufacture of polythene or any polythene products of 20 microns or below in thickness. And the sale and the use of such polythene products were prohibited. And this word polythene meant all solid products, bags, materials, or contrivances manufactured using all forms of polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, PVC, polyethylene terephthalate or PET, or any other similar raw material used for the purpose of carrying, packaging, wrapping, or packaging, right? Yeah, this word, the packaging, is repeated 2 times in the regulation. I don't know why. And this was effective until 2017, when the Minister of Environment enacted 6 more regulations in year 2017. The first order was Gazette Notification 2034, number 33 of September 2017, which overall, it first to rescind the previous regulation on 20 microns plastics, and it re-established with a proper wording and clear, for clarity. It said the manufacture of polythene or polyethylene products of 20 microns or below of in thickness, and the sale, offer free of charge, exhibition or use of polythene or polyethylene products, which is less than 20 microns in thickness. And also it exempted certain products from this prohibition. They were the materials used for laminating: PET, polypropylene films, nylon, CPP and metallized CPP, PVC, and PET-G, which are used for laminating, was exempted from this prohibition order. And also use any plastic products which are used for medical or pharmaceutical purposes in the absence of any other suitable alternative. So this regulation was clearer than the previous one, which was enacted in 2006. And the second regulation enacted on the same day, that was again another order prohibiting the activities specified. The activities which were prohibited were the manufacture of food wrappers from polythene as a raw material in the country use, and the sale, offer free of charge, exhibition or use of food wrappers. These food wrappers, particularly the regulation refers to, in the glossary it says food wrappers means lunch sheets. The lunch sheets that we, the terminology that we use day to day. Polythene is defined as high density polyethylene and low density polyethylene and polypropylene. So this banned the manufacture and the use of these lunch sheets. The third order made on the same day was again prohibition certain activities and exempting certain activities from the use. The activities which were prohibited were the manufacture of any bags of high-density polyethylene as a raw material, offer free of charge, exhibition or use of any bag manufactured from high-density polyethylene as a raw material. And these bags included silly bags. The word that we use day to day is also included in the regulations. I will read that out. For the purpose of this schedule, bags manufactured from high-density polyethylene as a raw material means bags of any dimension, with or without handles, for the purpose of carrying products or goods, and includes grocery bags, generally referred to as silly bags. And certain bags were exempted. Garbage bags, length, width and height are specified, and also textile bags. And then the fourth order was again prohibiting burning of refuse and combustion of plastic waste. That was very clear. Open burning, and this regulation is cited as National Environmental Prohibition of Open Burning of Refuse and Other Combustible Matters, inclusive of plastics. So it is now added to the air pollution control regulations thereafter. The last one, which was enacted in 2017, is the order prohibiting the use of polyethylene products for decorations. We have been using polythene for decades and decades for all forms of decorations. So this order banned the use of all forms of polyethylene, polypropylene, polyethylene products or polypropylene products as decorations in political, social, religious, national, cultural and any other forms of events. So that is the one that prohibited the decorations. And then another regulation was enacted prohibiting the manufacture of food containers, plates, cups, spoons from expanded polystyrene. They were all banned. That was in 2017. And very recently, in 2021 January, there was another regulation enacted by the Minister of Environment. That is the National Environmental Plastic Material Identification Standards Regulations, number 1 of 2021. It identified 7 plastics, starting from PET, HDPE, PVC, LDPE, PP, PS, and other forms of plastics. And all the symbols and options were provided as 3 schedules, right? So if a manufacturer needs to produce any plastic products, the manufacturer is supposed to indicate the category of plastics which it belongs to for the purpose of recycling or reuse purposes. And this was in 2021, and the latest was, together with that, again in 2021, there was another regulation which prohibited the use of PET and PVC materials for packaging of agrochemicals, right? And there is that didn't have much impact on the consumer products, but the second part of the same regulation prohibited any plastic items for any processors, trades and industry, sachet packets, right? Having less than or equal to net volume of 20 milliliters or 20 grams. Except for packing foods and medicines. And also inflatable toys, except balloons, balls, water floating pool toys, and water sports gear, and cotton buds with plastic stems, right? So we'll discuss about the effectiveness of each of these later during the discussion. So these were the most prominent plastic regulations, and the latest one came up in 2023, very recently, which again prohibited the use of single-use drinking straws and stirrers, and single-use food containers, plates, cups, spoons, forks, knives, and except for in air travel, because for safety reasons, air travel allows certain plastic utensils to be used. And then garlands and string hopper trays. So those were the very prominent regulations that we have. And coming back onto the national policies that we have, the Ministry of Environment, together with the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers in October 2019, they published the National Policy on Waste Management, right? It had a section on solid waste categories. There were 9 categories, starting from municipal solid waste, packaged waste, industrial waste, construction demolition waste, healthcare waste, e-waste, radioactive waste, marine waste, food, agriculture, and livestock waste. Plastic was not included in any of these categories, but in my opinion, other than radioactive waste, all the other 8 categories have plastics in it. And plastic was mentioned only one time, the entire policy. It had not been recognized as one of the, I don't know why, for some reason, but late in 2021, I think Professor Ajit might elaborate on this, the National Action Plan on Plastic Waste Management was introduced in 2021 by Minister of Environment as a separate action plan. I don't know, probably the The only instance where plastic is mentioned is in packaging waste. Just one clause had environmental friendly packaging shall be encouraged at all times wherever possible instead of plastics. Right? That is the only place where plastic is mentioned. I think the national policy has, in my opinion, has failed to identify the plastic management, the problem that is has posed by accumulation of plastic in waste management streams is not very clearly acknowledged in the national policy. That's my opinion. But overall, at least now we have a national policy on solid waste management, which we can work from here onwards.
Yes.
And I think I think we will come on to the national action plan on the plastic management later if we have time. So there is a very brief outline of what we have now, the regulations and the regulatory frameworks. There can be shortfalls, shortcomings. There can be certain things that we can improve later. But now this is the framework that we have for the time being.
Okay. Seems that actually Sri Lanka, we have the framework and there are so many things listed out. But still we know that even today at lunch that our friend Dr. Adil Bakir has experienced that the packagings are still with the plastics. Dr. Akil, would you please elaborate that? We know it's a problem. We know it's a kind of, let's say, people carried to the silence death. But would you please elaborate in your point of view, with your experience and all the research findings and everything, why it is such a harmful, why we are banning and why we all look at and work on it? It's kind of very briefly, as well as kind of with your experience with working with all other countries. I hope that you will give a good reply for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. So first, I just wanted to say that the Sri Lanka and the UK have a long history of collaboration. So we started in 2018 with an international project focusing on marine litter. So if you remember at the time, the name of the project was the Commonwealth Litter Program, or CLIP. And now the program has morphed into the OCPP, or the Ocean Country Partnership Program. And the component of marine litter is still very important on the marine pollution. And basically, as part of OCPP, we're focusing on different thematic, and basically marine litter has a lot of impact, as you mentioned, especially on an international level, but we also have to consider other anthropogenic stresses. This is why basically OCPP is actually focusing on three major themes. So we have the marine pollution, we have the sustainable seafood, and we have marine biodiversity, because the impact of microplastics and basically the bigger plastic items are related to all of the three themes. We've seen from, like we said before, from international projects, the impact of plastics on biodiversity, on food safety, on human health. We saw a lot of very exciting talks yesterday and today as well about the current work in Sri Lanka, focusing to understand all the impact of those small particles. And especially, we're only covering the surface, of course, because now an emerging sector is nanoplastics. And we still don't know basically the effect of those smaller sized particles. We know they're very abundant in the environment, but we still don't understand basically the short to long-term impact, especially on humans. And as you very greatly mentioned as well, plastic are very useful materials. We need plastic materials because they're quite lightweight. We need them for medical application. We need them in our everyday lives. And the main problem are their mismanagement. When they enter the marine environment, this is where the problems occurs. And it's very important basically to develop some robust monitoring program where we can actually understand the sources. Once we understand the sources, it's actually easier to, like you said, to implement all the regulation that are coming from Sri Lanka. Especially, it's quite exciting to see you are developing some national action plans. And this is what Cefas is doing as a whole. We are actually collaborating with Sri Lanka experts, especially with my colleague from ITI today. And we are actually collecting baseline data. We are producing all this scientific evidence to support policy action. And hopefully, we're going all together. Basically, we need to real collaboration, and we need global network and global projects to have global impact. And this is what this project is all about. So
okay, thank you very much. So actually that Cefas, they are doing a lot for the world, and also with the collaboration of Sri Lanka and many laboratories you have established in Sri Lanka? And anyway, that I'll come back to you that when for that question once again. Professor Aditya Alvis, sir, that actually what I want to know about in context of circular economy, because we have talked about the framework and now we mentioned about that the items what we are using and foods and in all our lifestyles. And so in the context of circular economy principles, what innovative solutions or practices can businesses adopt to reduce the use of single-use plastics and minimize their environmental footprints?
Thank you. Thank you first for the invitation to be in part of the panel to discuss this issue. You have had a fantastic conference on plastics and environmental sustainability, right? And you go back a few years, we have been talking about plastics is the industry to go to in terms of finding jobs, in terms of it's a booming industry because it's going to be everywhere, and it is everywhere. It is everywhere. Now, of course, we have also aligning this with the change of the economy, the way the economy should be run. We have been running this linear economy, using things, extracting things, transforming them into products. Then we use them and then we throw them away. And that has been our problem. So in turn, we have been creating huge piles of garbage. For instance, Sri Lanka, we have about 300 plus garbage dumps across Sri Lanka. It's sad to see, but it's one of our own creations. We have done it. We are contributing to them, all of us. So that means you are putting resources, you are using resources and wasting them away. And recently we have calculated for like even Karadiana site, we have done this calculation for a couple of million US$ worth of resources are there technically. Yes. Just being there, that there's potentially you can make use of those raw materials. And the way to use these raw materials basically is to understand or run the economy differently. So today our option or the pathway that we are advocating is to move away from these linear economy principles to a circular economy principles, right? The resources are never wasted. They find their afterlife. They find their use again and again. And of course, in any economy, it's the businesses that take decisions. The business models run the economy. We depend on businesses, entrepreneurs, and so on to give us what we want, the services and goods and stuff. So if they change their way of doing things, maybe we have to follow suit because we are dependent on them. Yes. But this transformation does not come easily, right? Because we are very happy with the cash flow models that comes in with running the linear economy. And we are so happy to dispose them as well because no longer we want them, we dispose them. There is a segment of industry, segment of businesses that are ready to move them away and put them away as well. But now we realize we can't do that. So we need to bring this circular economy concept. And then the circular economy concept to be embedded into the businesses themselves has to come up with different business models. That's important. Now what we showed actually at Moratour was that this potentially there's these millions of dollars, couple of millions of dollars worth of stuff is getting there. And every year we are contributing to that dump. So if it's going to be there, that value is not being realized. It's a waste and it's going to create a lot of problems. As was shown in one or two of the research, you are polluting with microplastics in the vicinity. Yes. So if it has been shown for Moratour, you can bet the same thing is happening in 200 or 300 or other places as well. So we are polluting our waters. Now, waste should not be treated as waste. So waste should be taken. Two options. Either we use that plastics as they are, the current way of using the plastics, or look at different plastics products as well. Going back, as I said, anyone interested can watch the film Graduate. The film Graduate was about go and find your job in plastics. That was a very famous line from Dusty Hoffman, right? And today we won't say that. After all, you had about 100 odd papers here. Yes. Discussing all the issues. We are eating microplastics. Somebody says we are consuming like 1 credit card weight of microplastic stuff into our body every week. Now that is boring to think about where are they going. We have not technically studied the Sri Lankan waste going out from a Sri Lankan to identify how much plastics we are throwing out. That part of the research has not happened, right? Maybe animal studies, but even not animal studies we have not done. It'd be nice to see whether they are getting accumulated and what level this is going to be a problem for us. So businesses need to come in. Those who collect, those who will look at recycling, and then those who will add models like refurbishment. These models need to, and maybe different science altogether, complete recycling of the material for their elements and then building the polymers back again, which is almost like chemical recycling. So you extract the materials and then get your monomers, and then you start working from the bringing the plastics back again. Of course, the alternative, the best alternatives, probably the bioplastics realm, which will be discussed. So you have these options, but you need to put in money, you need to change your business plan, you need to invest. Same type of equipment cannot be used, that will be different. Same processes cannot be used, again they have to be different. For instance, perhaps Sri Lanka has taken a wrong decision in going for like oxo-biodegradable type of thing. And if you have been looking at this research finding, by taking the decision based on oxo-degradables, the oxo-degradables came in to manage with the same amount of equipment, same type of equipment that we have been having. But what we have done is we have accelerated to get plastic fragments even more into the environment at a faster rate. So if it was taking 500 years, we probably will be making it into small particles very quickly. So that's a wrong decision, right? And the businesses are running. Businesses are running because we were not ready to invest for the different type of machinery. We want to use the same type of machinery without changing that business environment, and then to say, look, we have become a little better because the plastic that was to be visible is no more visible. They become very fragmented and get lost into the plastic. But unfortunately, today we know this whole issue. So circular economy is the way to go. Hopefully the government should say, look, enough is enough. This is not the way to solve. We have to move into the circular economy. European Union, for instance, speak of circular economy. That is a basic principle. You find Japan looking at circular economy. They have called recycle economy. Maybe you have a different word, but the concept is circular economy. So people are really seriously changing their economic model, and in turn the businesses have to follow suit, right? It's a give and take. You will push for this change, businesses have to change. So I suppose that's the answer, right? While we get new materials, which of course won't have a lifetime of 500 years in the environment, so the major problem of plastics as what we see today is eliminated by using that process, we still, as resources, it still will be good to see the circular economy coming in. So we do not dispose, we make use of the material again and again, and we get our services and goods, and we do our machinery, the processes to support this waste to go back into products and services. That transformation need to happen, and it had to happen in Sri Lanka as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Ajit. That is a very elaborative and very comprehensive answer. And so we starting from that question that I'm moving to Professor Angika. Professor Angika, that we know, though they are talking about the circular economy or the policies or wherever, the consumer or that the population in the country or the people, they don't care about it much. So in your perspective, I know that you have done so many work with the people, and you are trying to promote that less plastic in the country, and even that you join with us and we work together. So in your point of view, let us know that from a consumer perspective, how can individuals make more sustainable choices in their daily lives to reduce their contribution to plastic pollution?
First of all, I must thank you for inviting me for this timely, important discussion. Actually, when we talk about the management of plastic, both ends have to work together. I mean, as Professor Ajit correctly mentioned, the government has to move away from linear economy to circular, introducing new models and supporting the businesses to change the way they run the business as usual, moving away from them, and they have to have proper plans, nationwide plans, collaborating with the other countries. So we have to go in that way. So at the same time, as consumers, as individuals, we have a big role to play. So we know that, as Professor Manatunga mentioned, we have implemented time to time different standards, strategies, and prohibitions of you go to the market. Still, we see all these banned plastics. Even the silly bags are still we see in the market. So there's a problem with the policy implementation, and at the same time, as consumers, how we behave in the marketplace and as individuals in our households. So we have a huge responsibility and a discipline, self-discipline, and we must aware the impact of excessive use of plastics, and the plastics will be broken down into microplastics, and at the end of the day we all indigest intentionally or unintentionally. That would come end up in our body, and we will be end up having all sort of diseases which cannot be diagnosed. So we know that we have certain type of asthma, cancers. So we don't know, direct links have not been identified, but we can imagine it is a foreign material. Once it is in our body, so our body must react. So with that understanding, we should know if there's a banning in the country, as responsible individuals, we must adhere into the policies implemented in the country. The first of all, the awareness and education, so they can make informed decision. So these are banned for this particular reason. So we must play our role to support in implementing government policies. So that is one way that consumers can think of. And at the same time, you know that with the 2,500 history, so we know that in our grandmother's time and in our past generations, so we did not use plastics. So we survived with the minimum use of plastics sometimes back. So in our day-to-day lives, for simple stuff now, you know, with the handy use of plastics, it is easy to use, we know, with our busy lifestyle. To facilitate the lifestyle, we, without considering, we move into plastic, and we accelerating the use of plastics in our lives. So if we can little bit think of what our ancestors did and how our parents, grandparents managed our household stuff, day-to-day lives without plastic, actually we already have the solution. So our lifestyle, the way we behave, must consider by ourselves, and we should try to implement and try to move away to alternatives wherever possible. So that way, in that way, we can think of our behavioral patterns as individuals. So in plastic waste management, so we know that 3R concept: reduce, reuse, recycle. So in reducing, as I discussed already, and reusing wherever possible, and recycling, we must dump our plastics. If there's any place that where we can dump our plastic in a proper bin, actually, that simple behavior would help us in managing plastic in a better way as a nation. And apart from these 3 R's, I think refuse and upcycling also can be taken up, and we can think of to refuse wherever possible, and upcycling and coming up with new businesses to make the linear economy to circular. So in that way, individuals should play their role if we really want to get rid of this problem.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Angika. I think that as we, as individuals, we have a biggest role to reduce, reuse, and recycle, and especially that refuse, that what we have to, not the 3R, maybe the 5R. So refuse is one thing that actually we have to practice. And as the biggest technological institute, the ITI, I think, Dr. Kushani, you are playing a big role in having a biggest laboratory in collaboration with Cefas UK, and also that you are playing a big role in how you are supporting the industrial people about this many things, especially about the plastic and their usage, as well as the testing and everything. So what kind of thing you are, as Industrial Technological Institute, what kind of initiatives you have made to prevent use of plastics or reduce use of plastics, or especially to maybe probably your support is given to the to produce this industrial frame, government frameworks. So what kind of support, what kind of actions you have taken as a ITI?
Thank you very much for inviting me for this panel. Yeah, with the collaboration with Cefas, we established our microplastic laboratory in 2022. And we have a complete laboratory once we received newly sophisticated micro FTIR. We will be the center of excellence in analysis of microplastic and testing. So now we are doing some monitoring works, and we are testing the microplastic in the water treatment plants to adjust their treatments, and we work with the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, Western Productions, to analyze the microplastic in their treated water. They are going to adjust their treatment or the filters accordingly to reduce the plastic present. So with the collaboration with Cefas, they have requested us to help the HR development in Sri Lanka. So with the collaboration with them, we are planning to give some, help the MSc students for their research with the collaboration with them. So with the new micro-FTR, we are invited to method development used for microplastic analysis. So we can help the universities and students to undertake their research, and the private sector, the industries, to plan their treatment plants, because we have a separate section planning the treatment plants, and we are doing testing, so we can support for the industry to scale up their treatment plants also.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Jagatpanthanga, I know that you are an expert of the field of water quality, and also that the treatment, rather than the regulatory frameworks, that the thing what Dr. Kushani mentioned about the support that they are willing to support for masters of research in universities, and also Cefas is there. So as a university professor, that how you are going to take in, or how you are going to get that advantage of this ITI as well as the Cefas to our university, because universities should be taken some steps to produce new things, as well as to prepare or like introduce new technologies. And so in that case, how you are going to take these both supports to the university, and how you are going to make out of that use?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, I think it's we have to congratulate the ITI for collaborating with Cefas, and I think that collaboration has been very fruitful so far. I think you have taken the lead. I think we need to collaborate with both of you, and we have been collaborating with the IIT in several other sectors, but I think now you have taken the lead in this plastic related research. We'll definitely we will be collaborating with you. In fact, when it comes to water pollution, recently some of my colleagues, I was working with some of my colleagues and some of my students. We were looking at phthalates in fresh waters in and around Colombo, marshy areas and canal systems. And we investigated at least 19 locations where we found we had about 13 different esters categorized into different chemical compositions, and we found that certain chemical compounds are very high. First, due to this industry is disposing untreated waste or partially treated waste, or traditional treatment methods would not allow the removal of these microplastics and plastic containing waste. I think that would be one of the things that we have to look at. The next step we would like to look at, I think some of the researchers, even yesterday, Professor Methika also mentioned that how they monitor the water quality in Kaluganga and Kalaniganga. Those are the two main water extraction sources that we have. Similar to the wastewater treatment systems, the water treatment systems also, they are unable to remove these microplastics and these emerging chemicals as well as organic compounds. I think we have to first make the community aware that such pollutants are present in the water sources, both the surface waters, which we might not be directly using for drinking purposes, but still they can contaminate groundwater resources as well as coastal waters. So I think first we need to study the baseline condition. What sort of pollutants are present due to mismanagement of the plastic production until its final use. I think there are I think infinite number of topics that are not infinite, but at least I can list out so many opportunities other than solid waste management as per se. Wastewater treatment, water treatment, those two are also connected with mismanagement of plastic waste from production until its final use. I think from identification until its reuse, and then looking at alternative materials and the impact of introducing alternative uses. I think that there are tremendous opportunities that we can collaborate and we can work together. Not Muratu, but all the other universities, as well as any other government institutions who are willing to collaborate with you, especially the Central Environment Authority and the Marine Environmental Protection Authority, MIPA. So I think, let us see how we can collaborate with each other for mutual benefits.
Okay. So my next question actually, Professor Adil, do you have anything to add for that particular? Because we know that you're also doing so many research.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're already collaborating with other governmental organizations. So we did set up a laboratory at MIPA, but also at CEA, and we're also supporting NARA, basically to produce as many scientific outputs as possible. And the work from ATI is very important because it goes back to the notion of targeted monitoring at source. Yes. So we want to understand the main source of microplastics. And once we have those data, it's very important basically to change the processes, as my colleague basically mentioned. Then we can inform how to improve our facilities. And those baseline data are really needed basically to measure the effectiveness of new processes, new technologies being implemented. And especially now that we have a global framework to reduce marine litter, especially with the Global Treaty on Plastic Pollution, it's very important to collect baseline data and to continue the very important monitoring work that we are doing. And as we've seen as part of our experience with CLIP, but also for OCPP, infrastructure is very often a limiting factor in the producing of scientific data. And this is why it's very important to develop this global network with common global facilities and equipment, so we can all produce our own baseline data. And at the end of the project, or at the end, basically of specific framework, we can have global assessment and we can compare harmonized data. So we're not talking about standardized data, we're talking about harmonization, because we have to give to leave enough flexibility basically to optimize the protocol to make sure they are suitable for Sri Lanka, but the same for the Pacific. But I know all the different environment, of course, will have different local challenges in terms of sample collection, sample analysis. But this is where this special collaboration between Cefas, the UK, but also CPP is not only Cefas. We are also collaborating with GNCC, MMO, and other organizations. And this is quite important to have those global cooperation basically to combat marine litter as much as possible. And I just want to thank you, all my collaborators from Sri Lanka, because I know they've been doing a fantastic work in collecting scientific evidence.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm moving to Professor Adil once again. So that in terms of corporate responsibility, because how can companies engage in extended producer responsibility, EPR, and take ownership of the entire life cycle of their products from production of disposal? That means I'm basically focusing this question on plastics, because we know that the EPR is very important, that we are going to do many things, many regulation frameworks focusing the EPR. So how this is focusing, or how we can use this EPR for reducing plastics, or that the production of disposal.
Okay, I think this concept of producer responsibility is now with us because polluter pays principle. Sri Lanka has effectively accepted polluter pays principle. And so by accepting that wide principle, polluter pays, look, if you are producing stuff and giving it to the consumer, and then if the consumer throws that away, then that action is have to be kind of like internalized to the producer. And the way of connecting that is producer becoming responsible in ensuring that the waste that consumer is not going to throw that away, and moving it back into a device or developed a mechanism of moving that back into the party that produces. So Sri Lanka has been working a lot on this. I suppose going back a little bit, in 2000 year 2000, around that time, we came up with this legislation for 20 micron bag thickness. The idea of the 20 micron thickness was, the concept behind the movement was, look, if we have this sufficient weight, I don't know, anyone of you have tried collecting 1 kilo of silly bag or 1 kilo of lunch sheet, you will identify the time taken. It's not that an easy task, and you don't feel very quite comfortable about collecting 1 kilo and then getting some small amount of money. There's a huge time cost here. It's not that convenient. And the sheet's been very, very thin. It's not really giving any weight. So the movement behind 20 micron was, look, this is sufficiently strong, and you don't need 2 bags, 3 bags to carry a small amount of weight as it was happening. This bag is strong enough to take 5 kilos from supermarket, the normal weight, and there's sufficient weight in it. If you can collect it, you will get your, for supporting recycle, people will be happy to collect such bags. But unfortunately, it really did not happen. We ended up saying, as a result of this law or the rule, that we spend more money, more on bringing plastics, raw material from abroad, pellets and stuff from abroad, because we do not produce the primary material. We depend on totally from outside trade. So there was this showing that it happened that way. So now we have moved on to extended producer responsibility. That means, okay, as a consumer, we will be having a mechanism of, okay, how do you put some sort of a tax, some sort of a money amount on top of your product. When you purchase, you have kind of like, if you return it, you get some money back, right? So there is this opportunity. And it prompts you to return rather than throw it away, because you have already made a little bit of money, and then this money that is collected is supposed to go through the process. I suppose the Blue Dot in Germany is an excellent example of this packaging recycling, the extended producer responsibility in action. Still, this has been under discussion for about 3-4 years in Sri Lanka, and we have not yet been able to formally move it in. Fortunately, the Chamber of Commerce, the industrial cohort groups are in this process. They want to push it because they also know that it's an important part for them. They have to accept this responsibility, and the modalities need to be developed. So it's how do you ascertain this cost, the margin that you're going to put on, slap on the product cost, what will be reasonable, that won't put you off totally from purchasing altogether, right? And then the collection mechanism, then also seeing how it can be made use of. So these discussions are still going on, and Ministry is playing a big role. Ministry of Environment really pushed this CPR, and chambers took it, studied, and come up with mechanisms. Even some of the early products that are going to be with this price slapping have been kind of identified. For examples like even simple thing as yogurt cups, where we say, look, haphazard disposal of yogurt cups has resulted for Sri Lanka, for instance, like the dengue menace. Because the water collection, then the mosquito breeding, and then we know the consequences of such a dengue attack, dengue disease on a family is huge. It's not just a disease itself, there are social costs on it, there are a lot of economic cost on it, right? So a corrective action on something like a normal consumer product that it won't result in this environmental, as an environmental pollutant, has huge payback really. But the point is, to move consumers and the industries in, you need a financial market instrument. So EPR is a market instrument. It just how to tweak it to make it workable in the country. Like 20 micron did not work. That was pure law. That was pure law. And as a result, cost went up, and certain foreign exchange losses were also there maybe, because we didn't really culturally took it in the right spirit, and we didn't move into recycling in the right way. So here now we are going to, okay, so the economic instrument, some financial part will be there. So hopefully part of it is acceptance. Now I remember reading from here that one study indicates, one of the research presented in this conference, that about 80-90% of the people are not exactly aware of issue of microplastics. And this same population are not really understanding the health implications of plastic pollution like this. So when the society is not aware, there won't be a financial penalty will not be able to be moved very effectively, because you need to have the buy-in from the society that this is being done for all of our benefits, not just for one party or the other, right? So there has to be this communication, and hopefully that is something that should come out, that we have not really sensitized the population in general to adopt best practices and what we should be doing. We are still stuck with the conveniences of the plastic part, and thereby making use of the convenience part, but irresponsible disposal habit. And all the consequences are not known or not understood. So I suppose EPR is a way to go, but it is still slow in coming, being introduced in the country. So principle is there, adoption in principle is also there, chambers have come in, ministry is pushing, the rules are there, it awaits that implementation point.
Yes, please, Professor Mantinga.
I think the producer responsibility should be connected with the extended consumer responsibility as well. Whatever the producer might do will be meaningless if the consumer would not act responsibly. Now, for example, if you take a product and if the consumer after consumption throws it away, and sometimes you can't blame the producer. Consumer has his own responsibility to manage the waste. This EPR, I think now these regulations were 20 microns and also these sachet packets. I think the industry, they took liberty to raise the content of sachet packets to 24 grams. That's a total irresponsibility of, there are very big brand names behind this. 20 microns, they will produce polythenes at slightly above 20 microns. As Professor Ajit correctly mentioned, the regulations are to protect the environment, to get rid of, not to get rid, but at least to properly manage the plastic waste. And if the corporate sector, if they can look for ways to avoid the regulations, I think that is irresponsible behavior of the corporate sector. They have to understand why these regulations are being introduced and enacted, and they have to act accordingly.
Thank you. Professor Ajit, so I'm starting from that point, because extended consumer responsibility. So we know that consumers are also having a part of, and also that awareness is most important. In there, actually, that media is playing a bigger role. Media has to play a bigger role. So I know that you are doing such work also for enhancing the knowledge of people, and people should have to know that why these plastics to be banned and what are the problems with it. But I think as in Sri Lanka, many people, they are not aware of it much. So I'd like to ask you this question: what role can the media play in shaping public perception and influencing policies related to plastics and environmental sustainability? And how can responsible journalism contribute to positive change?
Are you directing that question to me?
How
So
can
you
responsible
mentioned-
journalism?
To me, right?
Yeah,
The
you
question-
to
okay.
yes, from Lanka, it's you,
Good
and
question.
journalism contribute to positive change.
All right, yeah. Nowadays, we all know that I'm sorry to say this, but I think I should mention this, how the mass media and the different type of other social media, how they behave and what type of time allocation and airtime is given for certain segments. I know that with all these political and with other aspects that they are focusing on, the environment has been always neglected. So I think the environmental sustainability plays a bigger role, because otherwise in turn we have to, as he mentioned, so the problems with the environment is always associated with the problems with the society and the economy. It will be a burden on the society and the economy as well. So we must have a proactive, we have to have a vision to incorporate environmental management in our sustainable development plans, in our economic and social development. So in that instance, I think media has a bigger role to play, because nowadays our information, the general public will reach information from especially social media and also certain type of mass media as well. So they have to, I think they can come up with certain forums, they can initiate dialogues, so they can allocate airtime, and they should be responsible to take in the relevant and relevant experts into discussions, and private corporate sectors, those who are really involved in the problem, those who are real producers, those who are making policies, policy makers, decision makers, should be sit in one forum, and we should discuss the matters. Not only discussing, and at the same time we have to have plans, and we know that we already have certain plans as a country. Yes. So there should be, we have an implementation gap. So media can play a role in making aware of the public. So we know that we are talking about the problems with plastics. So we know that people, most of the time we see that they make uninformed decisions. They have not much aware of what kind of impacts that plastic can make on our health and environment, and in the long run, in 10 years time, so our next generation, what kind of impacts that they are going to go through as a result of our behavior present. So the media can actually give us a proper time for all the relevant stakeholders, policymakers, and even the consumers and the scientists and technology and development people. They should come and talk to the general public time to time, every day, if we can talk to people. So people will get to know, that is the way the human we behave. If we get the same information every day, so we have a chance to change the way we behave. So in that instance, I think the media must consider if they really want to contribute for the national development.
Yes, the media has a real responsibility to change this pattern and the use and all. Dr. Adil Bakir, that I'd like to get your addition for that particular location as well as what she has mentioned, because you have so many experience in all over the world, maybe collaborating with the several institutions. And so how do you, what kind of precautions they have taken, what kind of steps they have taken, and what kind of advice you can give us that to pass our country people that this way would be better, because you know the background, you know the problem. So would you please add something to that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. And as part of CLIP and OCPP, a big component is education and outreach. So we did actually support Sri Lanka with education packs, and we also developed some scholarship. So there's currently some OCPP scholarship available for Sri Lanka. I think at the moment they're really targeted on biodiversity and aquaculture, but hopefully in time we can have some master's projects. I think at the moment they are based in Kelaniya and Paradeniya universities, and hopefully in time term, we can have some masters fully funded focusing on plastic pollution. For the education packs, they've been distributed, but I think this is a very good comment that this exercise has to be repeated in time. So I think the problem, we waited too long between basically the media interventions. So I think for the future, I will actually recommend for the project leads to redo a media campaign. But I think the one we did in 2018, so it's a long time ago now, I think needs to be repeated, updated, of course, because a lot changed over the years. And what we're trying to develop as well is full curriculum for universities. So we can have modules targeted for plastic pollution, how to do sustainability, or to do material testing as well, because we saw quite a lot of talks during this conference are based on alternative products. And I think this is a very good component. It's been discussed with this panel today as well, that we have to rethink material use, we have to rethink material design. I know there's a lot of work in the UK, but also in other countries trying to redesign the whole textile industry as well, because we saw that microfibers is a very important source of contamination in the environment. It's part of microplastics, but there's also a lot of microfibers based on semi-synthetic and natural items. So that's why it's very important to redefine the material at its core and to make them more sustainable. We have to give up fast fashion as well, because I think this is a massive stress on the planet at the moment, and we cannot deal basically with a material that will be discarded straight away. We need actually to make sure we are linking the circular economy into everything that we're doing. But education and outreach is at the center of everything that we're doing, and hopefully this is something we can do again for Sri Lanka and make sure the population and communities get the message.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Kishani, now you are working with the Cefas as well as many industries or many institutions in local as well as international. So I'd like to know about that this interconnectedness of global ecosystems also a problem to us, and problem means like the plastics that they are going to ruin, I can say ruin, and how can international cooperation be strengthened to address the transboundary effects of plastic pollution on oceans and wildlife? If you can answer for that part as an industrial institute of technology. Yes.
Yeah, really, that CEPES is mainly working on the transboundary interactions, and they are funding us many research for that. Even we are maintaining a database for the marine litter. We are maintaining the marine litter database for, in some cases, that in that database that the researchers has observed some litter from the India and even from Thailand, far away from the Thailand, the packagings and so on. Because we have a database, so anyone can access and upload their data for the fine evaluation with the collaboration with Cefas. With their mainly for the microplastic and the plastic pollutions, we are collaborating with them to work, and time to time they are organizing very fruitful and very useful workshops.
Okay.
I was attending one in late November last year on the preparedness of marine emergency responses, and April they are going to organize a workshop on GIS and the modeling of marine pollution, not riverine pollutions, and like that. So they are working with Sri Lankan and many other universities as well as with us on the transboundary pollutions and so on.
Okay, thank you very much. That means that starting point is there. And again, I'd like to get your idea about Dr. Adil Bakir. So, that what type of things that you are going to do in future, because to support Sri Lanka, because we are island and you know that marine is a kind of things that, but always we have to move. Even I can remember in 2004 when we have tsunami and I went to the beach, and the beach is full of plastic, and especially the down south, and all plastics, because when I have seen those things, those are not the things from Sri Lanka. Those are from Indonesia, the letters are kind of thing, and then I thought that all they came to Sri Lanka this far with this marine, whatever the ocean waves and all. So this kind of actually not the problem with the country, inside the country, but the marine and all wildlife. And what kind of, other than that education or the supporting to the institutions, that what are the other things you do from the Cefas as well as from your institutions?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and that's a very good question as well. And especially this is come back to the collaboration with our in-country partners. So what we try to do is to import innovation. Of course, we want to do staff and knowledge transfer. So of course, there's a lot of expertise already in Sri Lanka. The science is very good, and we keep saying that basically today and yesterday as well with the quality of the presentation. So I think basically there's very good output coming already. But I think this the series of workshops and the development of transport modules is very important, especially this is something we do quite a lot of Cefas in terms of our monitoring program, is try to understand particle tracking, where they're coming from. This is where monitoring is important, because like I said before, and I keep emphasizing that again and again, we need to understand the sources. Once we know those sources, it's easier to model the transport. Especially we know for surface waters, as you mentioned, the currents, the wind as massive drivers for the transport. And of course, transboundary marine litter and microplastics is a big issue, because of course we don't want to point the finger, or basically we don't want the world to point the finger to Sri Lanka saying all the marine litter is coming from Sri Lanka if it's not the case. That's why it's quite important to have robust model that we can validate with actual observation. And after that, hopefully, this is what we want, robust scientific evidence, once again, to support policy. And hopefully, this is going to be a long-term collaboration between the UK and Sri Lanka on this aspect.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Ajit Salvis, my next question is for you. Actually, we know that nowadays we are talking about the climate change and many contexts related to that. And so how do plastics contribute to environmental challenges, and what measures can be taken to address both plastic pollution and broader climate-related issues in a synergetic manner? I hope that you can answer that question, because you also have a broad knowledge of many things. And
I was commenting to Dr. Adil just before this meeting, before this panel,
yes.
That after Express Pearl, with
Yes.
Express Pearl, we
Yes.
disposed 11,000 metric tons of plastics of different types just outside Colombo, right? And other than a usual spill of plastics, we had fire
yes.
contaminated in the sense of pyrogenic plastics and so on. So it's a mixture of the virgin plastics, other complicated polymers, as well as this fire affected plastic one, which will fragment very fast. So microplastics to nanoplastics may be happening right as we speak. There was this comment for climate change, right? The plastics I'm asking for the research data, just read about it, but have not research data, that floating plastics, we know this, you actually affect bird life through those floating, because they misidentify them for fish eggs and things like that, and they consume, then they have problem. But that's known. But here there was this comment that plastics floating, usually, it's later in life that they will go into the sediments, with the salty and with different chemicals and UV and so on, that there's methane emission coming from as a response to this plastic. So I was just asking him whether, do you have any research data on this, or whether this is a fact. It's commented on very strongly as a fact, but without any research data. So I was just asking. So I suppose we have lots of environmental challenges, and that's why the UN resolution on plastics is coming. The UN resolution is now coming up. It's probably in the final stages of identifying intercountry, like climate change, a plastic resolution. What we should be doing about plastic is coming up. The reason, perhaps we know now, plastic is a real problem of sort from an environmental point. And nanoplastic is a very significant unknown. I suppose before this microplastics and nanoplastics came into the equation, we would have been comfortable with the thought that bioplastics would have been sufficient and recycling would have been sufficient. Now, with this, even with the normal consuming of the plastics, microplastics is generated. We know when we open a bottle, plastic mineral water bottle, the very mechanical step of opening it up is going to put up some microplastics into the water, and we are going to get it. I mean, that's part of the breaking news at one point when the dice was identified, right? The City University in New York and the the UK university that came up with the staining technique. I suppose we have significant issues environmentally, and also these long-lasting microplastics actually act as carriers to attract the rest of those other chemicals that are floating, and they become almost like a chemical cocktail of sort, not just that simple polyethylene or so on, but also a film of other chemicals and stuff. Is significant. I don't think we know this full answer yet. Perhaps when we get to know the answer, it may also be too late, right? That's something to worry about as well. That's why the precautionary principle in normal environmental, it's kind of kicked in. And we are taking steps to think this is not going to be good, let's do something about it and act fast. That's the stage at which we are in, because 12 million, million metric tons of plastics coming into marine every year, going up from 8 to 10 to now like projected to in that range, it's significant. I know Sri Lanka was identified, Adil, you mentioned about the Sri Lanka at one point was even identified as the 5th largest marine polluter, but that was completely wrong. That article in the Science Journal was based on wrong data. So unfortunately, Sri Lanka took a stabbing on it, kind of like a bad publicity, which was wrong. But nevertheless, as Professor Banduni, you mentioned, walking into the beaches, we do see plastic being littered, and river mouths are well known as sources of collection of plastic. So we do have indulged in bad practices, and as a consequence, all these problems will come in. And so the number of problems, earlier the very simple fact was clogging of drains and stuff like that, because this stays in the environment for 500 years, is now probably been superseded by this very ultra small particles, and ultra small particles acting as carriers. I think it's going to be significant, because we are finding it in human blood, we have found it in placenta, any part of the body. Nanoplastics can go into the blood brain, can cross that barrier. So we do not know what exactly is now actually happening within our bodies, and what level the critical levels would come in. So if it's in placenta, if it's crossed from the mother to the baby, and so you basically is born with a contaminated load to start with, is not going to be good, because what system is being impaired as a result of this early circulation of this foreign matter. It's a difficult question to answer. Only thing is, we know we have a lot of problems, and better we take decisions fast, understand the problem, and take corrective action. It will be good for all of us, more to the future.
Thank you very much, Professor Ajit. Actually, that you mentioned that the UN resolution is coming in, and Professor Manatunga, that so UN resolution is coming in related to plastics and also the banning or whatever the things. We don't know what they are going to say. We don't know as a general public, we don't know still that what they are going to say. Maybe sometimes we may have some understanding. And however, that in Sri Lanka from 2000, before that we talk about solid waste management, and we talk about plastics, and we were banning so many polythene stuffs and HDPE and many more things. And we know that it will be a really difficult thing in future, because like what Professor Ajit said, if we are not going to take actions now, of course it will be we may be too late, let's say. And so my question is, actually in Sri Lanka has introduced and enacted many regulations to control the use of plastics and manage the waste. Have they been effective in your opinion? That's my first part. And the second part is, how can these enacted regulations be made more meaningful so that the country progress towards sustainable plastic waste management can be done? So if you can answer that question, I'd be much grateful.
That's something interesting, but I don't want to criticize government agencies in front of an officer from a government agency. Again, I'm a government employee as well. But let me go back to the history now. In 2006, when the first this plastic related, this 20 micron regulation came up, and there was another act which was enacted in 2008, which was referred to as Environmental Conservation Levy Act, that number 26 of 2008. and it proposed to charge 2 rupees for each HDP bags, right? But later it was challenged in the courts, and it was the court issued an order against the levying of 2 rupees. And that regulation proposed to contribute this 2 rupees per bag to the environmental conservation levy account in the consolidated fund, but it had no mechanism to use this money for recycling. They said this levy is for recycling of HDP, but it had no mechanism to do that, right? So enacting a law, a regulation, and then how to put into practice, how to enforce it is a problem. Now, even the series of regulations that we had, altogether 6 enacted in 2017, there's practical issues in implementing them, enforcing them, right? Now, 20 microns for this sachet packets, for example, lunch sheets. Now, wherever you go, you have these lunch sheets used. Even in government organizations, they have their own cafeterias. Now, if you go to even all the government offices, the plastic pens that they use has no indication of the material that it is being produced. We have this labeling requirement, but it's not enforced, right? Now, I think the government agencies, before enacting this regulation, should look at the practicality of it. I think it's more beneficial, as both Professor Ajit and Professor Rangika mentioned, to educate the people first. It might be more meaningful, more effective than say introducing laws. I think I have worked with this solid waste management support center. They have their own strengths and weaknesses, but at least they try to popularize these 3R concepts right from the beginning, from say kindergarten student up to all the parts of the society. They have been they have effectively passed the message on to the people. We never knew what 3R was about 30 years back. Pilisaru project again had all these composting initiatives. At least they try to do something, right? Before these regulations are being introduced. This making people aware of mismanagement of plastic waste. We all agree that plastic cannot be banned. It has so much of uses, and it's embedded with the day-to-day lifestyle of people. As Professor Rangika mentioned, when we were small, there were no single-use plastics as such. We had hard plastics, but single-use plastics were not very much in use. So having regulations might not solve the problem. It does not solve the problem in Sri Lanka anyway. But in Japan, where I think both of us we studied in Japan, we have the first-hand experience. They don't have such hard regulations on controlling the disposal of single-use plastics. I think Japan is one of the countries that uses huge amounts of single-use plastic. If you buy a packet of lunch, they have at least 3 wrappings around it. They are all single-use, but that has not created any problems because the consumers are so responsible. They know what to do with the separation of this waste. If you take a PET bottle, they know what the material that the cap is made of, the label is made of, and the bottle is made of. There are 3 bins. They separate these 3 into 3 separate source materials, and that's the responsibility of the consumer. They don't have regulation to separate a plastic bottle into 3. No. So educating people and making them aware of these negative things might work better than regulations. Because in Sri Lanka, we know that regulations have, at least related to plastics, management of plastics has not been effectively implemented. Enforcement, I think there are problems. Even the National Action Plan on Plastic Management, we're talking of extended producer responsibilities, and it had a goal number 6, is to introduce regulations to enforce EPR into practice by 2022. Now we are in 2024. Nothing has happened, right? So enacting policies and this short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, they are just documents. And also, and unfortunately, these plastic-related regulations are, I think, mostly limited to the papers. I mean, practically, you can't implement them. Now, my personal opinion is that when you enact a regulation, when you introduce a regulation, there should be a practical way of enforcing that. Without knowing what to do after introducing the regulations, what is the purpose of having those regulations? That is what has happened, in my opinion. I'm not criticizing a government agency or the ministry's initiatives. Yes. Initiative is good, but they should have looked at the enforcement part as well, the practicality and how to do that. And also now this when it comes to Basel Convention, for example, transboundary movement of waste is banned. Plastic is also added to this hazardous waste category very recently. Now in 2017, in 2019, we know the famous issue that we had, about 200 consignments came up, it just popped up in Katunayaka. It was cleared from the customs, and a very famous conglomerate in Sri Lanka is responsible for that, right? How they cleared it from the customs, right? Now, we have regulations, but the problem is the coordination between government organizations and passing the message to the stakeholder, the organization, and also including the private sector, and also the individuals and groups and the society. There should be cross-links between all these parts of the society, because they are equally responsible for management of plastic waste.
Thank you very much for your elaborative answer, and also that your own opinion you mentioned. I think that most of us have the same opinion. Many regulations are just kind of paper, but we have seen, because the implementation is difficult, or there may be something up. But Rangika, that I'd like to ask you that the extend that similar type of question, because we know that we have to go for we have the world transition to be towards that the more sustainable future. So when we are talking about this sustainability, means what role do education and advocacy play in influencing public opinion and fostering a sense of responsibility among individuals and communities? So what is your opinion regarding that? Because that he also has extended his opinion regarding that this is not happening, and many things, though we have so many framework or the regulations. So how do you see that that point, as well as your suggestions, so your opinion that how we can overcome towards the sustainable future, at least for reducing the plastics?
Yeah. As we discussed so far, now we know that we have a problem with the implementation.
Yes.
So maybe there are some gaps and weaknesses in implementing from the administrative end, and at the same time, as I mentioned earlier in my discussion, from the consumer end, maybe from the production end, we have some points that we do not consider to behave as a responsible citizens. So maybe the most important thing is the education and awareness. Without knowing, as I mentioned earlier also, how can we make an informed decision? So once we should have a plan as a nation to educate and aware people regarding environmental pollution, including that the problems associated with plastic and unwise use of plastic and plastic waste management. So in that case, I think from our primary education, starting from the nursery education, and you know that other developed countries, like for example countries like Japan, so they do have certain plans to inculcate environmental management into our behavior from the childhood. So we have in practice, we should be able to anyhow incorporate that environmental management, including different types of waste and pollution, into our childhood education and for the secondary education as well. And as Dr. Adil mentioned, that in our university education, now we know we do educate our students regarding environmental management and environmental conservation, but limited to different set of students. Now, for example, I'm working at University of California, and we have introduced a course on sustainability. environmental sustainability for all the disciplines, for all the faculties we offer. Even students from medical faculty do take part of the program. So we hope that by incorporating such, introducing such programs, we hope that students into every discipline, that they are going to be a part of the society working in different disciplines. But when we take their decisions, maybe the health sector, maybe the production, energy, whatever, that they should have the understanding on environmental sustainability, because as I again mentioned, that environmental sustainability is a must. It's paramount with our development. Otherwise, we will end up with having a lot of, we already have enough problems as a nation. So if we do not consider the environmental, the damage we make on the environment, otherwise the consequences are coming up, and we have to allocate a whole lot of money to recover. And with that, even we know that environment is recovering environmental damage will not that easy. So the education is a must from the childhood, and even our, so most of the time so the kids do learn from their parents and from their the society where they are associating with. So not only the children, but also the adults must be educated and aware regarding the environmental matters, including the plastic that we are talking about today.
Okay, thank you very much. My last question is to Dr. Kushani. Dr. Kushani, now we know that you are doing so many research and you are supporting industries to carry out their research as well as for their developments. In that case, actually, what advancements in research and technology are on the horizon for mitigating the effects of microplastics on ecosystems and human health? So, and how can this be integrated into our current environmental strategies? Because you have doing a lot of work and you know that what's the real situation after doing experiments and the results. And I don't know, we are not aware that whether your inputs are coming into this kind of regulatory framework and to control this environmental sustainability. So what it is and what kind of contribution you are doing and how do you think that it should be framing?
When we consider even the microplastics pollution, our regulation still doesn't have the requirement, the maximum or minimum level, that still it is not implemented in any of our gazettes or the wastewater discharge or in drinking water standards. It is not still addressed in any of our standards. So it should be addressed. And other than the microplastic, not only microplastic, there are many organic pollutants which we are not addressing. They are in the nature, even in a Calendar River, there are many kind of phthalates, but even in our drinking potable water standards, they are not addressed. So we have some kind of background data, not only us, the Central Environmental Authority and the National Water Supply Board also. They have some data, so they should be incorporated into our standards. So even it is not a regulation, our industry doesn't themselves keep the standards. They want to test the effluents according to the standard because of to get the EPLs only. So unless they are implemented, people are not taking actions. So it should be incorporated.
Okay. So, thank you very much. I think Professor Manthagu, you have something to add to that. Just
I think now we are promoting recycling, right, or reuse. Now, when it comes to recycling, I think now I have worked with a couple of very small local authorities. They keep on collecting plastic waste, right? Well, they have no option to do what to do with that, right? Sometimes they don't have a collection network. They don't have the final disposal methods to be adopted. In that case, they are not interested in segregating, right? Sometimes the consumers, they might not segregate the waste properly. They might be collecting that with other types of waste, biodegradable waste, for example. And when the plastic sheet is contaminated, you can't use it anymore. And these recyclers, they use lots of water resources to clean these plastics before recycling, right? I mean, you can't avoid that.
The microplastics in their waste are very high.
Very high, that's right.
In some industries.
For example,
textiles, there are some glove making.
So this waste discharges and also the waste recyclers themselves, I mean, they do a good job in recycling waste. But before recycling, they do a lot of environmental damage. Say they discard some waste that they cannot recycle. They use a lot of water to clean up the waste. So I mean these are things that we can regulate very properly, and also supporting and then empowering the community at community level as well as small local authorities. If we give them options of what to do, they might regulate the waste recycling process, not altogether, but at least to a certain extent, so that some pollution scenarios can be avoided. Because I mean, regulations might not solve the problem, but educating the people, making them aware, might solve the matters to a very great extent.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Adil, that you all the way joined with us to this first international conference on plastics and environmental sustainability. And so my last question to you, that how did you experience this conference? This is the first one, as far as I know, in the South Asian region. This is the first conference focused only on plastics and the microplastics. So the nanoplastics is also coming. So we expect that the Environmental Studies and Sustainable Development Center in the Open University of Sri Lanka, we are planning to have this conference next year as a second conference, and not in this also somewhat bigger scale, but the more with the international influence or international ingredients, and conducting in the larger or the mass scale. And at the same time, I'd like to know about your idea about this conference, and how did you feel, as well as that the meeting so many researchers who are doing their work with in a small scale even, and also that how do you support because the Open Source of Sri Lanka is the one who initiated this plastic things, like we call about the plastic movement in Sri Lanka in last year, and this is our second year we are moving on, and so the conference is part of it, and also we did some collection of plastics, and also we are going to have future many activities related to plastics. So anyway, part of that. So I'd like to know about that, how that the Cefas will support to OUSL, or Cefas will support to this kind of conferences, and what kind of part you can play for the next year conference, but we are going to have in this plastics and environmental sustainability.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much. It was a real honor to be part of the very first one. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many. And I think basically this is the perfect example of the very high quality science coming from Sri Lanka. And as part of OCPP, we also have basically some project in Maldives, in Bangladesh. So I think we're going to promote a more regional approach. What we want basically is to expand the connectivity between different areas. And of course, Sri Lanka, and as we've seen as well with those transboundary marine litter, is very important to connect all the marine litter research in Sri Lanka, but also to other surrounding countries to make sure basically we are connecting all the science. All the outputs are harmonized in a way where we can compare. And something that was really important, and I've seen in many presentations over the past 2 days, is it's not only focusing on microplastic, but it's consider the whole pollution as a whole theme. And most of the microplastic presentation that I've seen always had a water quality testing attached to it. So all the students, all the researchers presented microplastic data in water, but also all the water quality parameters. And this is a very important, basically, way to report microplastic. It's not only marine litter. We know marine litter is only a small component of a whole of a complex interaction of anthropogenic stresses. And that's why it's very important to think about pollution. And as we discussed before, marine litter is linked to climate change, it's linked to the disruption of nutrient cycles in the ocean. We know it's disrupting primary productivity. So that's why we have to be focusing on the bigger picture. But I think this is a very good output already from a very successful first conference. And I wanted to say congratulations on a very good organization as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adil. And Professor Adil, sir, that this is our first conference. So you are one of the co-chair of this conference. And there are so many publications we have, and there are so many findings. But I think that the less innovatives we have taken up to now, because less innovation alternatives we have not introduced yet. And however that there are some research going on, there are so many things they have discussed, over 115 abstracts we have received, and almost over 85 that we have published in this abstract group. And in your opinion, because you are from the National Innovation Agency in Sri Lanka, so in your point of view, how you can see about this conference as well as the publications, the researchers, what they are mentioning about findings, and how we can use that into the development of the country.
Okay, thank you. At National Innovation Agency, we have been collecting data on all conferences, research that's happening in our university system, research institutes, and so on. And we have actually come out with a matrix also, what we call as a 3P plus P metric for evaluating institutions for their impact. Because at the end of the day, what we are doing should have some impact on the ground. Otherwise, it's not that useful, right? We seek something coming out of it, that we engage in doing something which is productive and hopefully make an impact. Now, to ascertain, that's why we have been collecting. I suppose you can be happy, or you may be aware that when you take your conference here, what you have done or just completed, it's on a specific topic. Right, this all 100, I counted like 100 with the 3 keynotes, the guest of honor, two keynotes, yes, and the session presentations all together with the abstracts. I counted 100 exactly, right here. So I don't know whether you can spend a little bit more time and putting this all sets of data into like the current picture. Okay. From all these extracts, putting the big data perspective, take that big data perspective and extract and position it on one page, okay, which talk about the situation. Eating, understanding the knowledge, the river bodies, Kalani, Kalu, all the stuff comes in, the road dust comes in. Are we breathing in this? So I suppose if you can extract them and come out with a review of this whole 100, may have an impact on, may be able to position to the CEA, the ministry, and so on, for one thing where we are and what we are not doing right, and in this very specific topic, I mean, be very, very helpful. And taking this research in, not just research extracts into to a policy level, in a sense of giving more food for thought for them as well. They cannot explain. I mean, I don't know whether how many of them were present. Jagat was kind of pointing the finger, right? In listening right throughout to this. Probably they are busy doing other meetings, so you don't have the time, but maybe it's your duty to extract the essentials out of this, okay, and give them, look, our river bodies are not going good, our mangroves are having some issues. Yes. I saw the mangrove papers. Yes. From Express Pearl, I know we have, yes, with the mangroves, there's some of the deposits and then yellowing and stuff. So maybe something that you should do to make an extract out of this entire 100 and connect these researchers more. For instance, like Sri Lanka is now doing plastics on road. Okay. We have, yes, multiple kilometers, car parks, embassy ping, and even the big car park at the first capital of the big one that's coming up at Bear Lake area. It's all done with plastics, plastic asphalt, right? And one of the theories is that some are worried that will release microplastics. But I would more worry about the vehicle tires that are going on in the synthetics that are coming out with the thing. But maybe an interesting area to study by taking a certain air test collection and see as things move on, whether that it's just kind of a research which will give a direction to a police. No need to worry. We should propagate this technique. And may get attention more into the the transport generated microplastics as well from the tires and so on, because the synthetics are present and the rubber and the variation. So maybe, yeah, congratulations. It's not the usual, because you have all these research findings on one specific topic, and it's very important that way. It's quite a collection, and hopefully the researchers stay together, and adding on to this, it's going to be where it really will have a matter and an impact possible.
Thank you very much for your ideas as well as your guidance. Actually, always you are with us to guiding us. And so the last wording, Professor Rangika, that you also the co-chair of this conference. So what you can say?
Yeah, actually, when you were organizing the first conference, I also came to you and we had a discussion on which topics in which title that we are going to have the conference on. So as he clearly mentioned, we really wanted to focus on plastics and want to get as much as possible the research and development findings into one forum. And as you remember, in the initial discussions, we thought of coming up with an extract. Professor Ajit, we wanted to come up with a certain summary report and going to the ministry and relevant policymakers and to initiate and propose our suggestions based on the scientific findings. I hope that we would work on that together with your support, and we would be able to implement. So we have a problem with the implementation. So our findings should reach the decision makers and they will make decisions. We hope that they will make decisions based on these scientific findings which are coming from the science studies carried out by the community in the country. So I'm very glad to be a part of this conference, and congratulations, and hope that you will continue to grow this in the next year.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mind you, it's citizen science, right, in a way, because you have mobilized researchers to pool in
Correct.
their time and worked on a topic, and they are presenting here. So you have a rich resource, which probably government should do as monitoring and so on. You have done it in, that's a snapshot of,
Yes, of course.
in the current context, you have a snapshot here.
Sure. Thank you very much. Dr. Kushan, from the industrial side, that what you can say about our conference and any way that we have to go forward.
Yes, that I'm happy that there are so many researchers has carried out regarding the plastic, more than that I thought first. So there are a lot of data there. So there are many areas that we have to develop. Even when in the discussion, I felt that we have to study some occupational health also, because inside some industries we have found so many dust. So the respiratory dust, less than 2.5 microns, they can go through our lungs, and in future we will try to analyze the synthetic particles in that respiratory dust also. So, and we have to extend our research into nanoplastics also. I think the Cefas will help us regarding that. So, and I believe that this is a very fruitful conference, and congratulations you all for that.
Thank you very much, Professor Manatanga. I'm coming to you as first as well as last. So I'd like to get your idea.
I think, congratulations. I think it has been a very successful conference. The plenary sessions plus 1.5 days of technical presentations. I think the one person, if I want to congratulate, will be you, other than all the co-chairs and the sponsors. I think your efforts have been very fruitful. As Professor Ajit mentioned, I think it's a very, very, very wonderful, it's a great suggestion. I think this can be the outcome of the research. It should the conference should not end here. If we can provide a working document to the policymakers, I think that would be a very good achievement as a collective effort. If we can put them together, as President Rangika mentioned, I think that would be great. Okay. And next time, I think we'll have a separate session for these regulators also, on regulations, and also the societal aspect of this waste management. Okay. So we'll add those sessions also as parallel sessions. There will be papers, as well as even we can have panel discussions rather than having papers presented in these forums.
Okay. So actually, now also parallel that there are some sessions going on. Some are only that joining with our panel discussion, but the recording will be available at the YouTube of Open Institute of Sri Lanka. And so, however, that you, Dr. Adil, that I'm so grateful to you because I'm getting this opportunity in this panel discussion. You joined the panel discussion as well as you came all over the way to Sri Lanka to join this first conference, and it's kind of a very honor. We are really honored about to have you here. And thank you very much. And for all panelists, Professor Jarakat Malatunga, Dr. Adil Bakir, Professor Ajit Jalvis, Professor Lanka Bandara, and Dr. Kuchan Mahandadila, thank you very much for attending this panel discussion and with very short notification. But I think it's a very fruitful work that what we had today, and also that your guidance as well as your advisors, those are I'm really honored to have. And also that as a last word, that I'm thanking all our sponsors for this conference, especially that the Turtle Conservation Project, TCP, Dr. Tushan Kapoor Singh, as well as Commercial Bank, and the Mars Foundation for Change, and also SDB Bank, and specifically that Professor Methika Vitanage, heading this Ecosphere Resilience Research Center at the University of Sri Javadhanpura. So, as Center for Environmental Studies and Sustainable Development of the Open Institute of Sri Lanka, thankful to all of you for presenting this panel discussion. And once again, thank you and have a nice day. Thank you.